Millennials! We're the generation on everyone's mind.
Best generation for me, Millennials.
Millennials.
I'm quite fascinated by Millennials.
Millennials.
I don't really care about Millennials.
Millennials.
But what are we really like? I'm determined to find out.
People say we're unpopular, but the statistics beg to differ. Between the 1980s and early 2000s, more millennials were born than any other generation.
Perhaps the biggest stereotype is that we're narcissistic and self-obsessed, something that I'm keen to disprove throughout this 27-episode series. But this week, I'm looking at millennials' relationship with one of the best inventions ever:
Technology.
Technology is everywhere, but as the first digital natives, millennials are able to utilise its benefits on a daily basis.
With the internet, anyone can access a vast encyclopedia of knowledge far quicker than they ever could before. Just 1 to 4 weeks.
Indeed, the internet has allowed millennials to start e-businesses like Amazon from the comfort of their homes.
I actually started a Michael Jackson is Still Alive website, which sadly had to shut down when he died in 2009.
But now, computers are becoming more powerful than ever before.
This supercomputer here at Cambridge even predicted 9/11, though sadly failed to predict it would be the day the Twin Towers were destroyed.
With this growth in technology, some fear its impact on younger generations.
We now live in a world where the government can see you touching your penis through your webcam. The simple solution is to cover it with tape, but this stings and you can still see the outline.
So what does the future hold for millennials and technology, and should we be scared?
Currently, robots serve us, but some believe that one day that could be reversed, meaning we would be served by them.
To find out, I met with graduate student in computer science and millennial, Toby Miller. Now, I know you're a bit of an expert on technology, but I actually know the person who invented one of the world's most popular electronic devices, okay? The Tamagotchi. Why are millennials always on their phones?
When people see a human face, they get a dopamine response. And dopamine is a sort of a quite addictive chemical. It's a bit like caffeine. Now you can see many more faces just by scrolling through Facebook.
Technology addiction is a big thing. My friend actually is now no longer addicted to cigarettes because he's addicted to technology instead.
What piece of technology would that be?
The e-cigarette. People have become a lot more used to technology being in the media. Do you think now maybe if RoboCop was in cinemas now, it wouldn't be as successful?
Because people would...
So a lot of people have already seen it.
Probably, yeah. Much less successful.
How come no one can see what you're looking at in incognito mode?
Well, you think that they can't see, but actually, in theory, someone could see what you're looking at. Incognito mode is more about your own computer not remembering what you're looking at. But that doesn't stop someone that's sort of snooping on your network, for example, seeing it.
I was disappointed that Toby would make up lies in order to scare me, but I'd still learnt a lot about millennials and their phones.
It seems when it comes to technology, we're growing up much faster than those before us. Children are given smartphones from when they're 10 years old. My dad didn't get a smartphone until he was 45.
As a generation of technology addicts, social media dominates our lives. On Facebook, we present ourselves like brands, in that we're selective with the information we provide. We try and associate ourselves with particular ideas. We have a logo and a slogan.
But what really worries me is if we're on our phones all the time, we're not reading.
The amount of reading among young people has plummeted in the last 2 decades. And according to this headline, some millennials can't read at all. I can't bear the thought that technology will stop millennials reading. I can't let that happen. Part of the reason for this was that books actually hold a very special place in my family. You see, my granddad was an author. He wrote a children's book. Freddie Seymour
child wizard.
Although clearly holding similarities with another children's book, Freddie Seymour actually came out a whole year before Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. The day my granddad was buried was one of the saddest of my life, not least because it led to his death just hours later.
So I want to see whether books can win back millennials' attention from technology.
I hatched a plan to use things millennials love to drag them back towards books. My first idea was to attempt an Emma Watson-style campaign, where I would leave books in public places and post pictures of myself with them on Instagram. To appeal to millennials, I made sure to include some modern authors. Unfortunately, after 2 weeks of doing this, I still had less than 1,000 followers. I realised that for the plan to work, I needed to have starred in a mega successful British fantasy film, and my budget for this ran out almost instantly.
The Emerald Dragon lies this way forth. Come this way, yes.
I was devastated that my ideas had failed, and I could feel my granddad turning in his grave, just like in his final moments. But just when I was about to give up, I remembered something Toby had said.
When people see a human face, they get a dopamine response, and dopamine is a sort of a quite addictive chemical. It's a bit like caffeine.
So pictures of faces made smartphones as addictive as caffeine. Suddenly, it was clear how to design books that could compete with smartphones. I would coat the pages with caffeine, meaning the reader would become addicted as they read. It was a real urethra moment, and I couldn't wait to try out the idea.
So I think the best way to test this is to do a book release for a new novel, but then secretly caffeinate the book.
I organised a book launch in a theatre and invited a number of millennial smartphone addicts. To make the experiment really stringent, the story of the book had to be rubbish, to prove that caffeine could get millennials even into books that weren't very good. But this presented another problem.
I can't hire writers who I think are bad, because when they watch this back they'll see that was why I hired them and be offended.
Instead, I found a good writer and asked him to produce the worst bit of writing he could. Then I agreed to meet him so he could show me some of what he'd come up with.
The atmosphere of the occasion came flying in my eyes. If only I could get the ball across to Hargreaves, then we'd be home straight. And we could appease the overlords. I pass the ball. I launch it over the crowd. They're going ballistic. Churchill, still under the mud, like an evil mole. He was alive. The player of the game. Football obeys his rules. We scored the goal. We'd won.
I actually quite liked David's story, but as we didn't have time to find another writer, I went to print the book. To make sure people inhaled the caffeine, I made the font of the book really small, so they'd need to hold it close to their face to read it. Then, using a process I'd learned off Reddit, I applied a breathable caffeine mixture to the book, as well as to some extracts. Soon, the experiment was ready to begin. The book release was taking place at the Corpus Theatre. I was nervous, so to ensure no one thought the event was a joke, I paid an actor to pretend to be a big businessman who loved the story. The doors opened, and as people began filing in, I quickly checked with a doctor to make sure that it was fine to give inhalable caffeine to a group of strangers. With everyone seated, it was showtime.
And at stage, doing everything he's got, welcome to the stage, Adrian Gray!
Thank you for coming to the launch of the new book, 90 Minutes by David Meredith. Who here likes books? Who here loves books? Okay. Who here has a history of liver or kidney disease? Okay. Who here has suffered from head injury, brain tumours or seizures in the last 6 months? Who here is allergic to stimulants such as Ritalin, Adderall or caffeine? Okay.
With the crowd banter out of the way, I was ready to let the caffeinated book do its thing.
Most of you should have an extract from the book under your seat, so if you could all just get that if you have a quick look. Basically, give it a quick read. Some of you should have it, some of you might not. If have just a quick look at it. So yeah, give it a really close read. Don't you love that new book smell?
Despite my best attempts to get the book to work, a lot of the millennials seem to have stopped reading. I had to do something.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a businessman. I've read many books in my time, but I've not read one like this. And so I'm investing all my money in it, and it shall be very successful.
Despite Sam's amazing performance, people still didn't seem that interested in the book, and many left without finishing the extract.
It's about football.
Not sure what that was about, really.
No.
I actually didn't mind that the experiment had failed, but unfortunately my hay fever kicked in hard. I also had to do some of my back stretches.
Oh, look at me.
Because of this, I decided to call it a day. My journey to find out about millennials and technology isn't over, and I won't rest until I'm sure young people are reading again. I guess the important thing is that millennials stay aware of technology's dangers, but can still use it to improve our lives. I've missed the delivery of my encyclopedia. Got to go to Ripley to pick it up. I don't know where Ripley is. Millennials, so just use maps. One of these has got to have Ripley.
You're probably better at giving interviews than a computer would be, for example. Not necessarily by much, but you know.
The big lizard on the sideline was clapping.
And I will use it to buy gold.
People born in the year 1990 are now 17.
I think I'm 27.